How's it guys? Welcome back to the Puffer channel. We hope you've been enjoying all the content we've been putting out and are getting excited for race day. We are now a few weeks out, sitting here with Matty, who's going to be running the Puffer, and Trevor Hall, sports psychologist, founder of the Comeback app, as well as an ex-elite athlete himself. He used to play for the Lions, flank I believe. Yeah?
Flank and lock.
Okay, Trev, why don't you start by telling us a bit about yourself?
So I'm a counselling psychologist, ex-professional athlete, rugby player, and I met Jesse through the practice here a couple of years back, and I run my private practice in counselling psych through Sequence. The majority of the people I see are just normal sort of psychological problems, things that they feel that they just need a little bit of help with to get right. And there's a small portion of my practice that are sports people and athletes, and the majority of whom come to me for some sort of performance psychology, just to organize themselves a little bit better in terms of what they want to achieve in their sports. And then I've got a speciality that a passion for, and that's injured athletes who've been injured and they're coming back from injury, which I try and get them back to a point where they're feeling confident again and their motivation levels up. That's basically what I do.
Yeah, that's been really interesting for me. I practice in the same sort of space as Trev, and since you joined the practice, obviously you've made me a lot more aware of, just the day-to-day psychological aspects behind an athlete getting injured and having their sport taken away from them, and how to best get them back out there, which is essentially what Zard wants to do. It's what Matty's been trying to do for a while. I've been working with Matty on a ongoing hip injury, which he's finally overcome.
Yeah.
I think he's stronger than ever. We were chatting about it earlier. Just did a 35k and feeling good here.
Yeah, getting there slowly. I think there was a little bit of aches and pains at the end of it, but I think it was going to happen. It was the longest I've run since, so March of 2023.
Cool.
4 hours, 35 k's yesterday, tested the body how it felt, and at the end little aches and pains, but today woke up feeling good, which is a positive for myself. So
maybe tell us a bit more about Addo, March 2023.
Yeah, so it was the last run I actually went into Addo after DNFing UTC 100 miler, and I'm a very stubborn person.
Did not finish.
Yeah, so I'm incredibly stubborn. Pulled out of UTCT at Heart Bay, 60 k's in with incredible hip pain.
Not the first time.
Not the first time. So but luckily my coach was there at the Heart Bay aid station. She started doing a few exercises with me to test. She's like, push yourself. Why don't you go to the next aid station and see how you feel? I'm like, no, I'm really struggling. I have no power. Can't lift my leg up. Yeah. So I did a couple of routines to see, and she's like, no, call it. You're going to do more damage if you run.
Yeah.
Saw Chris Allen for a while after that to work on everything. It's kind of eased up. I stopped the running. I put everything down to just volume of running that I was doing. I went from no running to just massive volume.
Yeah.
And went into Addo, obviously drove down to PE on my ace. Didn't know anyone. As I started the race, in my mind I went there for a podium.
100 mile podium.
Yeah, 100 mile podium. That's what it was, how I saw it. As I started, felt the hip go. And I was like, this is not going to be the race that I want. But I driven all that way and being stubborn, I'm going to finish it. And it ended up being one of those very special races. Yes, I was in a lot of pain, but I think it reminded me of why we do what we do, why we go out and run, and that community of running, what it's about. And I pushed through, finished the race. Had a funny story halfway through, 90 k's, met a local guy that was sitting around the fire. He was the kind of medic, but you can clearly, it was just one of those farmers that come to help. Had a beer in his hand, and I'm like, look, I can't lift my leg up again. And he was like, no, why don't you just push through the next aid station, and then the one aid station after there will be a proper physio. You can get through there, but you've got to get through the Valley of Tears, which is basically this valley where once you're in there, you can't. It cooks. It's hot.
The Valley of Tears.
Yeah, you can't exit it. If once you're in there, you either got to backtrack out or push through. And then I'm like, well, once I get past that side and I see a physio, there's only 25 Ks left, so I might as well do it. So he saw me at the end and he was like, yeah, you see, you finished. But obviously I had a massive smile finishing the race, and yeah, there's a lot of emotion, connect with a lot of amazing people, and but decided to see someone like the hit.
Did you cry in the Valley of Tears?
I didn't actually cry. I think maybe the sweat was getting to. I was lucky that I got there fairly early in the morning, so it was still a bit cooler. But yeah,
it gets up to I think 50 degrees
Yeah.
some years in some spots, and you can
And you're
imagine.
running through that.
yeah. So it's just
days.
down and just humidity. There's no airflow in there, and
Yeah.
it's. I mean, if something goes wrong in there, they've got to call a helicopter to come get you. There's no access to it.
Matt, you said just now it reminded you of why you run.
I think it was. I got into running very late in my life. I actually only started. I used to do a lot of CrossFit, a lot of sport growing up, playing hockey. Then I got into CrossFit here in Cape Town, and then work kind of took over, and I moved away from it. And I used to just hike with the dogs. And then during COVID, I started basically just running. We had children. I had a newborn, and that was my time to think and to kind of catch my breath. Sort of being a new
The
dad.
running was your time to think and
to
to catch your breath. But
to just gather, because I think being a new dad, it was a completely uncharted territory for myself, and dealing with internal pressures that came with being a new dad and how to deal with it. So running and taking the dogs for a hike was my space to clear my mind and come back fresh and obviously do what I needed to do. Then unfortunately we went away and two of our dogs got into a fight, and one ended up passing away from the fight. So I used that time to kind of honor them and the hikes, and obviously with having a new kid I could only go out for a certain amount of time. So instead of hiking, I was like, let me start getting into running.
Cover more
ground in the space that I could, and I started just loving it. I think it's just the way I felt afterwards, being fresh, so that was in COVID 2020 is when I started to, and then I was hooked and was like, what's the body capable of doing?
That's 2020 start to 100 miler quite recently.
That's not a long time on your feet.
And I think that's definitely probably added to the injury, because of moving from no distance to the 100-mile distance.
Conditioning is.
But I love to test the limits of the body.
But what was that? So from understanding that this is something that you enjoy doing because it gave you some sort of separation from all of these things that were new to you, that were clearly quite stressful. I mean, any new parent will understand that it's a stressful thing to happen to you. Though it's beautiful and wonderful, at the same time, it kind of it can feel like the sort of carpet of life is kind of ripped away from you a little bit.
Yeah.
And in that separation, you found this thing that it's just you basically doing, and you're moving your body, and all of the feel-good hormones, the serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocin, all of these things are kind of running through you, and it feels good. It's a very self-oriented thing to be doing. But then you said very quickly, from that experience, you started to realize, okay, well, the idea came up of how far can I push myself in this now?
Yeah. I think I've always been like that. I've wanted to. I think back in my party days as well, when I went through that, I got deep into trance scene here in Cape Town, and you pushing the body to the limits at those points in time, and then I shifted and I've done what I needed to do, and having children was something that I wanted, because I was like, I've had my fun and I'm ready to become a dad, but obviously you're ready but you're never ready, because it's a new completely shift of what you normally, and that's why the running
shakes the foundation of it.
So then I brought that into it, going, okay, well, how far I've done a 21k, what's next? And carry on going, and the first 100k was doing the 13 peaks, like, oh, what's next from there? And obviously that was looking at the 100-mile distance, and I had warnings from people saying, just your body's not used to it, like it takes time to build up to that. But I was like, I want to.
At the same time, no one wants to hold you back.
Yeah.
What you want to do, and I think that's where it gets tough, being like the medical side of things, you have these patients who have these goals that they've been working towards. They might come in with a niggle or something, and you're almost as invested in them in the goal. And obviously the diagnosis is complex. You have multiple things that could be going on. I mean, just talking about your hip, and you had hamstring going on, and both of us wanted it to not be something internal in the hip, something that we could fix.
Yeah.
And you try to fix it, and then eventually you just have to, face
that reality of what it is.
MRI and possibly.
What was the diagnosis on that?
So it tore my labrum, and then the surgeon didn't know the extent of the damage until you actually went in with scope during the op. And then afterwards, when I went to see him post-op he was actually when he came into the room pretty much the next day. And he's like, yeah, look, there was a lot more damage that had been done. I think it was running all the races with it torn, not realizing it was torn, because as from going from no distance to big distance, I just thought it was volume of running that I'm having these pains, and I'll push through it.
I think also going from a beginner runner to taking on challenges of someone who's learned all these lessons, maybe a bit slower. I think a lot of runners don't realize the amount of recovery and the amount of focus that needs to go into recovery from these races. You speak to some elites, you'll know they might take a month off from running after a big year. They'll maybe cross train to cycling or swimming for a change. That's that bicycle becomes actually a tool in their running preparation.
For sure, I think it's those learning curves that I've got from it.
Yeah.
Not coming into it as an amateur, but competing at a level that I was really happy with. But then not having that experience of going, well, let's pull the handbrake and stop.
You got a fifth for Clarke, was that?
Yeah, so fifth in Clarke, and that running with a torn labrum then as well. I was clutching the hip at finishing, and it's.
Yeah.
So it was. The surgeon, that's what he said afterwards. The damage for that done, the top of the femur head just looked like old frayed rope that come out of the ocean. He's like, you must never run again. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. I understand, I hear you. I must be smart about it. And I think that's where I've come in with working with Jesse a lot. Post injury and getting back into it, I really have taken the time to make sure that. Doing the right exercises, building,
The reason why I'm giggling a little bit is it's such a typical mindset of somebody who's driven, who's found something that they're driven to do. It's very typical, that it's kind of like you get like a dog, you just get hold of something like
don't
that.
Tell me, mate.
You have to pry its jaws open. So.
You think that's like a common trait almost psychologically between ultra runners or athletes in general?
I think I haven't worked a lot with ultra runners, I'll be honest, and runners per se, but I've seen quite a few triathletes, and then obviously rugby players and a few other sports people.
Yeah.
But I would say that mindset is similar across any population of a certain personality constellation. Where there's just something in that personality that allows them to. It's grit, really. It's this grittiness that people have, and some people they just got more of it, and that grit needs to be channeled into something. They need to find something to channel that grit into, and once they've found that pathway, they'll do anything that they possibly can to push themselves as much as they possibly can. My personal opinion on it is, and there is research that would back this up and whatnot. When somebody pushes themselves like that, you could say that there's a personality trait called conscientiousness. If you're looking at it from a Big Five perspective, it's an ability to sort of plan, to think through goals and to plan and then to execute that. And they normally play the long game like that. So they've got an incredibly, it's almost like a superpower of delayed gratification. So they can sacrifice things. I'm going to sacrifice this pleasurable thing for now because I know that the goal that I'm going to achieve later is just going to be so much. It is going to be so much bigger.
Sure.
And it is very prevalent in your top tier sports people.
It's interesting that you can lose that as well. because I feel like I've been there where it became very easy and I was training and the whole sort of habits of training kind of snowballed. And now that I haven't been training as hard, I'm finding it hard to, you know, sacrifice or find the time for it as well.
Has something replaced it?
Yeah, so
Is your energy-
I caught myself while I was saying that now. I think you obviously,
Because you're married now,
you
Jesus,
make
so
time, you get busy in other
marriage is
areas.
your
Yeah.
primary focus.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Okay.
No, I was just saying exactly that. So you kind of training less, you give the time to other places, and then
Yeah.
you almost have to reclaim it if you want to go back to training.
It does shift. You know, like Matt said, you were, you know, in the trance scene and doing these things before, then your family, then children,
Yeah.
you know, so what I think a lot of people don't understand about the psyche and energy systems in the psyche is that you've got this energy.
Yeah.
And it's not something undirected, it's still there.
Yeah.
It's your life force, basically, in a lot of ways. Some people are born with an energy system that's kind of Fiat 400, you know, or something, which is fine. That's great.
Yeah.
But some people are also born with this energy system that's like a 8-liter V8 that just needs to be channeled into something. And whatever it's channeled in, it can shift because we also develop, you know, from when we're born right the way through. I mean, what I used to be motivated by, etc., when I was 16 is not the same as what I'm motivated by now. So the object that I direct that will towards or the energy towards can shift, but it needs something to shift towards. And one of the issues with it, I mean, not to get too deep into this, but you know, if there isn't an object to direct that will towards, it can cause problems because it will then go. Your will then be directed to the path of least resistance, and that's normally your kind of hedonistic pursuits. You know, alcohol, drugs, parties.
Yeah.
A lot of elite sports people, there's normally some sort of hedonistic period that they went through. You know, either during their career, before their career, and especially after their career as well. A lot of people, when they stop running or competing or anything like that, there's no object to direct that will towards, and it's kind of it goes towards the path of least resistance, which can be dangerous.
Wow.
Often people refer to running as a sort of therapy.
Massively.
We talk a lot about the pain cave.
Yeah.
Having an injury, having a DNF, and then running a race and feeling that injury. That's got to be a whole other level of pain cave.
Yeah, I think that the threshold that I have is, and I think that's what adds to this, that I like it.
Yeah.
Like being in that space, like, and I think
You like getting through it.
and like getting through it. So it's like I want, you know, testing the body one thing, but also testing what the mind's capable of doing. And it's like you get into these spaces of like you are hurting,
Yeah.
but you can always come out of it on the other side.
Yeah.
And I think that was what's so special. I think for Addo, why it was so special as well is that yes, it didn't go how I wanted it to go, but it went probably how I needed it to go.
Sure.
To
What do you mean by that?
I think I got so caught up, and I think this is what you were talking about earlier, where I didn't have that conscientiousness of being able to stop and take it slow to get to the end goal. I just wanted instant gratification, like straight away.
Yeah.
And I went from not running to competing really at a good level and getting podiums, and I got caught up in that.
Yes.
And I just keep thinking, I'm going to race because I want a podium, and it just...
More.
And then I think I lost track why I got into it in the first place, with all the love of like being out there with my dogs, like being out there to clear my mind. Like instead of going to clear my mind, I was racing to be like just that constant thinking of where am I in the race at the moment? Am I top 5? Like forgetting to just taking that step back and pausing and just breathing and enjoying what it is. And I think that's why the Addo was so, it's like I got to 8 stations, and it's all these old locals that will go and camp for 4 days up in the mountains with their camper van, and it's incredibly special. They've been doing it for years, and actually just being there with them, having a chat and letting them share stories of, you know, when they ran the race like years ago or whatever races they've done, but you know, just absorbing everything that what a race is about.
there's almost like you went into this very sort of product orientated kind of mindset of I have this goal, I want to win, I want to
I want to sponsor,
I want to sponsor. I've got a taste of this thing now, and if I carry on in this, it's only an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what you lost in that was this is a process. I'm not just going to run one ultramarathon. I'm going to run many across my lifespan.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole process of it, of even signing up to the race, the community that you're with, the people, as you said, camping there and doing it for years, the stories that come with it, etc.
Yeah.
It's so much bigger than just the outcome of whatever race.
Exactly. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
There's so many facets to it, and it's like the race is not about that individual running it, but it's everyone that organizes it and who's there, the volunteers, the support, everyone along the way. Like having that moment to just actually appreciate all of them for what they do. Because I mean, months of planning goes into it, and like
so the injury basically confronted you with that.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I can't carry on like this, but I'm injured now. Now there's this sort of introspective lens that kind of came across you.
I think I always take the lessons from it and going, what I need in my life at that point.
When you're in the pain cave, you're almost having to explore so much as well that's going on psychologically. You try to pick yourself up, so you start exploring all the things that you're appreciative of.
Yeah, I mean, all your demons come out too in those points as well. Like,
but you work through them.
And
you got like 4 hours in that.
And that's what I think it is like going out there, and it's that therapy of being able to come out on the other side and just appreciate what you've got and how you got there. And I think too, after the injury, my partner at the time was doing a master's and just insanely busy. And then I had another little kid who was 1. So not that I don't think anytime getting injured is nice because it takes you away from doing what you do, but you find the silver lining in it. My silver lining was I can be at home. That year of not running, it was like amazing to spend the time with my kids.
Yes.
Like Sue being so busy as she was with the masters, finishing that up. If I was running that year, I don't know what would have happened.
So you redirected as you were saying, into something.
It was a redirection. So you refocused on something, and the injury was something that sparked that refocus. And that's also something very typical, that the psychology of injury recovery, it's so interesting because every sports person eventually is going to get injured. It's just a matter of time. Whether you're an amateur or if you're a professional or anything like that, you will get injured. Yeah. And I think, that an injury, first of all, an injury is always going to affect you psychologically. Okay, always. Yep. It's not just an isolated event that won't affect you emotionally as well as socially as well. So all of that, your social aspects, your emotional aspects, your physical aspects, all kind of work together in this life world of Matt, for example.
Yep.
And but what's typical is that although it's a harsh experience to have, because it does affect you across multiple levels, what happens is it reflects to you very always something that's lacking in your life, something that you haven't been doing that you maybe should have been doing, something that it gives you, it brings up an alternative. Okay, I'm not running now, so I have to find something to fill this gap with now. Yeah. I've got this beautiful family, I've got these kids, I've got a social network that I've got a support system. Yeah. I can come to Jesse and I can get treatment and talk and
if you don't find that, then you latch on to those other, as you call them, more hedonistic.
Well, yeah. I've seen that as well. Quite a few sports people, the ones who don't. Well, the ones without social support, they often don't heal as well. That's also something quite interesting. I saw lots when I was playing rugby in France, that we had a big expat community in all those French teams in top 14 and Heineken Cup. It's called the European Challenger, I think. But the guys who were from overseas, who didn't have massive support networks, etc., when they were injured, they really struggled.
Wow.
And they would often come back not as robust. They'd get re-injured again and again. And I would say that a huge portion of it was that they just were lacking that family around them, close friends, etc. It makes a massive difference.
That's kind of what inspired us with Zland was to try and support an injured athlete and grow a community, You're Zland Hero. The purpose of that is to inspire the people that you share with on social media to put in the effort to prevent injuries, but also, to say that it's okay if you're injured. As you said, it's part of the game.
It
You
is
just
going to
have
happen.
to deal with it the right way.
And when it happens, as I said, you get confronted with all of these things. Especially if your focus has been too directed into one sort of narrow, what would I call it, narrow life path or a narrow life focus.
Yeah.
Because it's, the psyche doesn't like that in a lot of ways. From the philosophy that I kind of work with, I understand that the psyche, it seeks balance. It wants balance. It wants community. It wants love. It wants to be able to work. It wants to find different things. It wants experience, really. And if you focus your energies just in one tiny direction, often what will happen with an injury is that you'll be confronted with all of these. It'll be like a multiplicity of potentials that you haven't been focusing on, that their focus has been taken away from. And it's a very interesting process for somebody, a sports person, to go through that, because often through the process and coming back to what they're doing, they go back to it with a much wider perception of just life in general. It's like, okay, I'm a rugby player or I'm a runner, but I'm also a father. I'm also a husband. I'm also, I love art, or, there's something that happens in that whole process.
Yeah. So just to tell you a bit about Trevor's app comeback, very interesting. So you sign on as, say, an injured athlete, for example, and you could probably talk about it better, but I've tried it out, and you do your visualizations and you do your journaling, and every day you're given different tasks. For example, go out and find someone in a similar situation. So you can almost build your support structure.
Yeah, it's a combination of guided meditations, visualizations, mindfulness tracks, social connection tasks, which I would say is probably one of the most important, but also one of the most difficult to do, because somebody with this program, it'll say, go find somebody who's had a similar experience, organize a time to go meet them, and then discuss it according to these prompts or whatnot. It's quite an
effort. It also tracks you, so you're putting in your sort of values on your mood and how you feel.
Yeah, so it tracks your mood, your sleep, your pain levels as well. So then you can actually see, it's not just so that you've got this visual representation, this graph that kind of grows over the 6 weeks, but it's also the act of being able to ask yourself how you're feeling today. So it's, what's your level of stress like? In order to put a metric to that, you've got to actually go inward and go, how am I feeling today?
Yeah.
And as soon as you do that, it's...
so you're not going to wake up in the morning and kind of do that check-in when
No. When everything's going well, to be introspective it's the last thing in your mind. But as soon as you ask the question, how am I feeling today? It's an immediate introspective process that and you're getting to know yourself.
One to answer, so if you can break it up into different categories, it's easier to give yourself a rating. I find with pain, and we've spoken about it, you've got to look at the frequency, the duration, how intense it is, and look at all those different aspects before you can actually realize, maybe I am getting better, maybe it is slightly less or happening less often and not lasting as long.
I think you've got to be honest with yourself too, because you can easily ignore that and go, well, I've got a little bit of pain, but not what I've experienced before, so it's fine. It doesn't matter. We'll pass it. So.
And any dream ultras? I think that's quite an interesting one. Any dream races?
So actually, like UTMB would always be the one, but it's actually not the big one. For some reason, I want to go and run like the base camp marathon in Nepal.
Yeah.
And I think it stems from, before I met Sue, I was literally about to go and travel in Nepal, and I think it's still, that seed is still planted. And then she always brings it up, she's like, are you sure? I always sometimes feel that, we changed your life and like you were about to go travel to Nepal. And I'm like, no, it's like, I met you and I knew straight away this is what we're going to start a family together. And I thought, well, I can still go to Nepal. It just means we can do a family trip there. And now I can do the
hike it instead of run it.
Yeah, and go do the marathon that's there. I read a friend of mine from varsity. He edited a book, and he was a teacher in a school and used to preach to his children about going out and doing these amazing things. And he felt like a fraud because he was teaching this to his kids and having these all on the wall about massive ambition and always achieving what you if you set your mind to doing something, you can achieve it. But it felt like a fraud because he wasn't doing it himself. And then he started basically going out and doing these crazy runs. And I think that's where I read about the Nepal marathon that they did at base camp, because he went and did it. And now, I mean, he's done these amazing things. He's done the race through the Amazon, the 240 kilometer stage race. And and he did these amazing things. So that book was also inspired me to, maybe I need a shift. I don't need to go out and compete at a level where I'm getting podium, but actually just also go out because I'm kind of getting these thoughts of like, I want to do something like, wow.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, that's what I was talking about, the process of it instead of the kind of product.
Yeah, so I think getting involved, like the planning, getting people involved and having a crew, and you go out and you do these, a big 300 kilometer.
Did you see that the first guy who ran from tip to tip Africa?
Next level.
Yeah, he's chatting about it with his mates in his dorm, guy from the UK. Not like a special runner in any way. And just decided, cool, I'm running all the way down to the south of Africa from the top. And he kind of gained support along the way. He didn't have much of a crew when he started. Small following on Instagram, and by the end of it, I mean, he's now super well known. He's got sponsors. He's now running to each game in the Euros.
Yeah. I listened to his. He was on that Diary of a CEO when he was talking, and I think he likes to push himself. When he was younger as well, I think he locked himself in buried himself alive for 7 days or something, and done crazy things. So I know part of this trip as well, he got kidnapped and taken to the middle of the jungle on like a 7-hour motorbike ride, and so he's definitely got some stories today. But I think that's what got me thinking, like, what can I think it was going to leave a mark somehow, and what you can do, like whether I need to do it or not, but it intrigues me to go and do something. So I think that's what needs to be a shift. Okay, I don't need the podiums, but I want to go do just something amazing with a group of people, as a this kind of community of where you go out and do something rad.
This Buff is going to be quite amazing. 30-year anniversary.
Yeah,
it's one of the most sort of OG races.
And my first one, so I'm like
South Africa.
Super excited, and
I think it's one of those like the Addo where you say people come out. And I mean, they're camping in the Addo. I don't think anyone's camping in the Puffer, but you've got these people that are just there to provide food at the aid stations, voluntarily.
Oh, that's awesome, hey?
I think even when you get to Signal Hill, which is the famous aid station, someone will run down to you, I remember last time, and they'll take your order if you want a beer or...
Oh, awesome.
Matt likes that. What's up there?
But you'll definitely shave some time off if you...
After a beer.
At least start or if you keep running.
No, see, I think, we chatted about it, and I think I'm going to use Puffer as well as a kind of gauge to see where I'm at again. And I want to go full mental, full Magoo on it, and just leave everything out there. And if the body it works with me, amazing. If it doesn't, then maybe sit back and see what else to do. Like, I don't think I'll stop the running, but then look to see what else I can kind of bring in and how we do it. Because it's recently now, just with getting back from injury and linking up with mates for run/hikes on the mountain. It's just amazing. On weather like this, to be out there and explore. This is endless on top of Table Mountain, and
and we'll be recording live, broadcasting from aid stations.
Awesome.
So, for anyone watching, you'll be able to track Matty as he cruises through the aid stations and over the finish line. A few weeks out.
Well, it's scary though, because I saw the 35 Ks I did yesterday was the longest I've run, and then I still got to add another 30 Ks on that, and I'm like,
yeah, but you've done 166.
I know. I think I feel like I'm going into an unknown again because I've been out for so long. But I think the training's been going well, and it's we're tracking nicely. And massive thing with Flat Rock Endurance from
this
Erin.
weekend, and there's going to be recce's every weekend. So if you want to get involved, it's so cool. Like they organise buses with 40 people on the bus, and you park your car. The bus will take you to one point, and then you'll run back to your car.
I saw the Instagram story. I think yesterday with Mr. O.
I think the first one was
doing,
Saturday.
doing today, taking the people on the bus, and it always looks like a vibe, eh?
Yeah. Nice. But yeah, I think that's it for today. It's been awesome chatting. Shout so much, Trev. Shout for having us. Matty, shout for coming in.
Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, you too. And amazing insights. So
yeah.
Thanks.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. Just look out for those notifications. You'll see when the next content piece is coming up. And yeah, keep running, stay strong, look after yourself, focus on the recovery, and most importantly, get back out there.